Well, hello, Larry Hromek with Omega Contractors. It is so delightful to have you here as our guest on the Business Spotlight.
It's a pleasure to be here.
Awesome. And I understand you're in your car, which is why I'm not seeing a video of you now, but that's quite all right. We can find out what you look like on your LinkedIn profile. So there you go. Well, I'm
It
really
looks
glad.
mostly like me.
Okay, good, good. Well, I'm really glad you were able to join us today. And so I just have a few questions to ask you. And I know you're not a big social media guy, but I think you have an interesting story. And when business owners get to tell their story, it sometimes inspires. And, I'm about inspiring and letting people tell their story. So maybe we could do a little bit of both. So why don't you
Sweet.
tell us what you do now and for how long? And if you want to build up to what you're doing today, that's fine too, because I can tell you have a bit of a history there as well. So tell us what you're doing and for how long.
So I'm currently a turnkey automation installation solutions company, which is a very pretty way of saying we install all of the robotic equipment and conveyance equipment that builds cars. So all the assembly lines that build cars, assemble batteries, and move your car through the uh, automobile plant is what we install.
Oh, okay. Interesting. I've just got to ask, do you just do it in the US or where are your customers located?
So we are currently a U.S. only company.
Okay.
We're we have the ability to install in Canada and Mexico. We have resources there. We're just stretched too thin now
Okay.
to enter those markets.
Okay. Sounds good. So how long have you had this business?
Uh,
It's a new business for you.
so it's a restart of a business. So
Okay.
I opened Omega Contracting in Kansas in 2016.
Okay.
And at that time I was working full time as a aviation mechanic and director of maintenance for an air EMS company in Kansas. And I was also servicing the GM Arlington plant in Texas. So I had a full time job and kind of did this on the side a bit. So from 2016 until 2020, we hadn't done much. We were small, under $100,000 a year, um, small. And then the pandemic hit, and that created a whole new dynamic for my company.
Right.
I was working for another installation company, and they decided that they wanted to go in a different direction, and we parted ways. And yeah, so it just turned into
Okay.
we parted ways. An old customer. I was the only one who had ever installed their equipment before in the United States. Came to us and said, we want you to install our equipment. You're the only one. And I kept telling him I don't have the ability to do that. I don't have a company. And they basically told me, I don't care what it costs or what it takes. We need you to do this installation. So they basically started my business for me. They fronted us the money in way of purchase orders and invoices, and we invoiced them weekly. And then that install ran from September of 2020 until December of 2020.
Okay. So the COVID impact, how did COVID impact? Was it because you were able to deliver? Well, how did COVID impact your business?
Well, it expanded our business because a lot of our business, because of the global market that the automotive industry is in, a lot of the installation contractors and companies that build and integrate this equipment are international. Well, this created a this created an environment where they couldn't get their people in the country. So they started leaning on us and other US installers to install their equipment that we typically wouldn't be installing.
That's amazing.
So it
So the global whatever is great until it breaks, right? And
but
you
until
benefit
you
from,
can't move people.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's exactly, and we're still having that. We're still suffering from that. I don't know. It'll be an interesting recovery, and it's probably never going to be the same. It'll recover in a different way. I love that you have picked up the pieces and delivered the services right on our ground here. That makes sense. Maybe we'll get back
Well,
to manufacturing and more things done here again.
well, they have started moving more and more manufacturing back into the U.S. So we've seen more U.S. based companies, but even the U.S. based companies are now Chinese owned.
Right, right.
So we still have a net deficit in the supply chain of pieces and parts that they are unwilling to source from within the United States that they continue to ship from overseas, which is still slowing down the uh, the economic recovery
Mhm. The supply chain,
in
which is trickling.
exactly.
Yeah. Interesting. Well, I'm really glad that and what I find is that true entrepreneurs, which I consider one myself, we're scrappy. You know, when the time comes, there's an opportunity and a true entrepreneur jumps on it. Maybe a little bit of hesitation, but when you move in, there's no looking back. And
Yeah, I really got hemmed into this. One of my friends owns an aviation company up in Burlington, Vermont, and the plan was actually to move to Vermont and take on 50% stake in his company and help him get the ship righted, which we ended up not doing. And I mean, I really got bullied into opening the business, and ever since then, it's just been it's just been nonstop.
oh, that's
Um,
great. Well, so since you've been a business owner now, what's been your biggest learning? So you've actually been an owner, a side hustle since 2016, and then
yeah,
officially to 2020. So you're about to move into year three. What's
yes.
been your biggest learning?
Um, I really needed to have a peer group. I needed a group of people who understood what it meant to and how to run a company of our size, between 10 and 20 million. So I I I'd eclipsed all of my friends. I had no personal friend pool that I could say, "Oh, hey, by the way, we're running into XYZ and money flow and cash issues, or what was going on, or delays." And I just had no one to talk to that understood what I was talking about.
Yeah, have to up your company sometimes, don't you, to get the right influence and direction.
Well, yeah, so I actually ended up um, purchasing friends through a CEO network, um, which
So you're in a CEO, and I love it. I love it. We do that with Action Coach Business Coaching. We work with CEOs in a peer community. It's a community.
yes,
You get to get advice and be held accountable from the group, and there's something magical about that.
well, there
Because
is.
well, I'm glad to hear that that's helped you. So you're evidence that you got to have a hustle. You got to be scrappy, and then you have to be around people who know more than you.
Well, it's definitely having people around you that know more than you. So I'm I'm a high school dropout. I don't have a high school diploma, nor do I have a GED. So I've outworked everyone around me. And
Yeah.
um, the interesting part is I have no passion to install tooling or automation equipment. Um, my passion revolves around impacting families and lives. Um, we have I've found that through doing this, we're able to employ. I think we're at 50 full-time employees right now,
Wow,
but we're
congratulations.
we're able to reach into communities. We're an international employer, We actually I have immigration attorneys, and we bring electrical engineers, mechanical engineers from Mexico and Canada to help our team and our base knowledge. And in doing that, we also impact their lives. We've
I think, oh, I lost you. It says, oh, there you are. I can't hear you now. For some reason, it sounds like my speakers aren't. Well, I can't hear you. Let me hit the pause button here. I'm back. Okay, so we had a little blip, give the people a time to do the edit here. So next question for you, Larry, which I love the story so far. And I wanted to say one thing, can't resist talking myself, I guess, but you've got 50 employees, but you say you love impacting families and lives. It's not just 50, it's 50 times a lot more. And that's what I think is so amazing about people who start their own businesses and grow like you have. I love that. So what do you find most inspiring about your business?
we've been able to grow a lot
Uh-oh. There it goes.
which has really been, kind of a blessing to us to not have to go outside and find the ever popular toxic performer, right? So
Mm-hmm.
we my background is I'm a Marine. I spent 8 years in the Marine Corps, and during those 8 years, I not only learned a lot from the Marine Corps and leadership, but we'd also dealt with uh, other services, and in that we dealt with a lot of teams guys, a lot of SEALs, and we found that there's there's a there's a sweet spot in your team members. Navy SEALs, everybody looks at them and they say, oh well, they have the greatest, the highest performing people, when it's not true. So the the ideal Navy SEAL candidate on a scale of 1 to 5 in performance would be about a 3.5 to 4, but they would be in there's a top scale of performance and a bottom scale of loyalty. So you'd be 3.5 to 4 in performance, and you would be 4.5 to 5 in loyalty. So that creates a very strong team member that's loyal to the guy next to him. So I've adopted a very similar hiring strategy, that I don't look for the super high performers because they are typically very toxic in a work environment, because they become very me centered. So we look for people that are good performers, that have good work ethic, and the non-tangibles that I can't teach you, how to be honest, or how to have a good work ethic, or have loyalty, or any of the other intangibles. And they end up being super loyal. We end up training them, and we have near zero turnover in employees.
That's awesome. Yeah, hire the right person, because the right person can be trained. I mean, unless it's a skill that has to have some kind of institutional training, but even in college and even in engineering, you still want to hire an engineer that's going to be able to work with the person next to them.
No, exactly. And we try
Yeah.
and get them young so that we get them with no bad habits,
Yep.
so we don't have to beat the bad habits out of them.
Mm-hmm. I love that. I was spoken like a true Marine. Well, so Larry, what's your favorite business book?
So I'm a Tony Robbins guy.
Yep.
I basically anything by Tony Robbins, or anything. I mean, Developing the Leader Within, from John Maxwell.
Love that.
Developing the Leaders Around You. Personal Power from Tony Robbins. Awaken the Giant Within.
God, that's
Um,
Awaken the Giant Within is every page you can spend a day on in that book. That's how I
yeah.
feel.
Well, because either both authors, they'll both tell you that there's no information in any of those books that you don't already know. You already know all of it. You know every bit of everything that's in those books.
neither one of them, you're not going to walk away with from any of them and say, oh, I didn't know that, right? When you're listening to them or reading them, you're like, oh, I know that. But the problem is you haven't learned how to apply it, and that's where it becomes so valuable to have both of them as coaches. Robin's research and uh,
Maxwell.
and the Maxwell Foundation.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I work with both.
I love that. That's great. Well, I'll ask you the last question. I really enjoyed our interview. I'd like to talk to you some more sometime. But what is the best way for people to find you if they want to know more about how you've brought people on, more about your business, more about how Larry has done what he's done in this business?
So dispel the fact that Larry's done what he's done in this business, because
Okay.
out of the entire wheel of of uh, of responsibility for this company, I'm probably the smallest and least important cog in all of it. Our employees have really been the ones that have helped to shape the company and take us where we've gone. So if anybody wants to know any more about us, they can find us on our website, which is www.omega-contractors.com, or they can find me on LinkedIn, which is also Omega Contractors on LinkedIn, or my personal is Lawrence Hromek.
Okay, that's wonderful. And so Lawrence Hromek is spelled Hromek for those of you who want to do the search. And I appreciate your time today, Larry. I know you're in the car and you've taken the time for this interview. It was good for us, and I'm hoping some of our readers will get some good out of it. So I will talk to you very soon. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.